All right, excited to welcome in Eder Quintanilla, our Academy Director, who we haven't had on the podcast before. We've talked about him many times. You stepped in. You thought we were going to do a little hair and makeup before we got started. That's what the expectation is?
Yeah. A little makeup as well.
Well, we're going to talk about your beard in a bit and the origin of that, because you and I were a little tag teamed on that. But I want to talk about your background. You're from Spain. You have coached at Bilbao, Atletico Bilbao, which has a ton of history. I've heard you talk about it before, but I kind of wanted you to kind of start by talking about that and kind of tell people about that team, you know, being from that region and coaching at that team.
Yeah. Athletic Bilbao. A lot of say Atletico because it's Atletico Madrid.
So it's
Athletic.
Athletic
Bilbao.
Atletico.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no H is what you're saying.
Athletic. I-C to the end, no C-O. Atletico. Yeah.
Okay. Did I mess it up?
Yeah.
Gosh, dang it. Thank you for calling me out. We're a minute in. No, it's good. Tell me about it.
No, it's it's a very historic club in La Liga, and one of the main things like makes that club different from others is the philosophy. We have a special philosophy there that only players born in the region of the Basque Country can play in the first team, or born there or developed in the academy. So we rely a lot in our academy to produce players and to compete against like power like Madrid and Barcelona.
Wow, fascinating. What was it like coaching at the club there?
Well, I was working with them in the talent ID department, so I was scouting for them for the youngers. I believe it's U13, like here, the first team, the first generation of players. So I was scouting for that age group, and yeah, I mean it's amazing, like growing up, being a fan of the club, and then have the opportunity to work there. It was fantastic.
What was the process like? Like take us through the stretch of time that brought you to the Sacramento Republic.
So when I was working there, I met Wake Forest and Akron coaches, big schools in college. I didn't know by them, but they went there to visit the academy and see. By then it was Bielsa. Bielsa was the coach of the first team, so they were interested in seeing him working, and also the academy, and they asked me to help them around, and I became friends with them, and then they invite me over. They invite me over to work some camps in the summer first, and then Wake Forest was the one that offered me like assistant coach position in the program. So that's how I came to US. Yeah.
And then you come directly from Wake Forest to Sacramento, or?
No, from Wake Forest I moved to the Earthquakes, San Jose, and I worked there for 4 years in the academy, being the 18s coach, and then I came here 4 years ago. I believe it's 4 years ago now here.
Yeah, you've been here a while. I wanted to ask about that because you are, Todd always talks about it, you're one of the hardest working guys at the club. You got obviously your academy trainings that you go to, and then a lot of times you're at first team training too, offering assistance. So sometimes you have some extremely long days, but I imagine for you, it seems like you just absolutely love being around the sport. Yeah.
No. Everyone working in the staff, members, coaching, one of the things that we share is the passion for the game. But I mean, I think it's becoming more interesting, the position of as a director, because you need to be in the academy. You also need to be in the first team. We have players constantly training there, and they need a little bit support and have a feedback of how they're doing. What do we need to work in the academy for them to be prepared?
Right.
So it's long days because you start in the morning and finish in the evening.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask about that because that's a fascinating. So you're not talking about the guys that are on the first team that have signed first team contracts. We'll talk about that in a second. But you're talking about players who are in the academy system, and oftentimes because they need bodies, they need all these different reasons, a lot of times academy players get invited to the first team training. And so at that time, you have to prepare those guys. Obviously ahead of time, you've been preparing them, but then offer their support when they come off on the sideline, things like that. So it's kind of like when guys are at their first team training, I'm assuming that's a big moment for them.
Yeah.
They're probably nervous.
Yeah.
Like, what do you kind of work with them and talk to them about? And then how does that fold into how do you train with them away from the first team?
Yeah, that's the main thing, I think. It's like how mentally, emotionally are prepared for being in the first team, because, it's a huge thing for them. And they arrive nervous, they arrive like doubting, they arrive like, and that that's huge for them, how they can think and mentally think that they're ready when they are not ready.
Right.
So that's a big part. They still the first team environment and their first team game style is faster. So giving them feedback and continue teaching them tactics and technically things on the field is also important. But I think the mental aspect is huge.
Well, in specific positions, the physicality, I'm sure,
Yeah.
is at a different level, even at just training with the first team too. How do you try and prepare those guys for, the strength of, 28 to 30, it depends on the age of who they're going against, but, grown first team players.
Yeah. Some of them, like, this is a huge thing in development, how players develop or they grow earlier than others. So some are prepared physically,
Yep.
some others are not.
Right.
So making everybody aware of that, and also them be aware of how they are in a different moment on developing is huge for them, and maybe touching base on how other aspects of the game could put them at the similar level of what the first team level is, without that physicality that they have.
Well, and then I imagine they come back to, say it's U16 training or whatever it is. The game probably slows down for them a little bit. So do you see that change as they go to, they've been at first team training for a little bit. Then they train with the academy, and they're like, oh man, you can see them start to game slowing down for them. You can see the wheels turning more, things like that.
Yeah. No, that's a challenge. That's a challenge that we need to face. And we have Davian, that is a teenager. He's a 14-year-old. And he needs to be playing with men.
Yep.
And he's not prepared. He's still developing.
Yeah.
And then a lot of movements go in first team, come in the academy. Even in the academy he can play 4 age groups. Right. He can play 10s. Right. He can play the 07s. So he sometimes he's moving up and down, and he doesn't even know what is his team. So those are challenges that we face, and with communication and them understanding how this is more a long-term process, and everything that he does is going to be reflected in the future. Yep. It's important.
And it's like, so let's compare him to Chibi, right? So Chibi, a little more physically gifted early on, right? Yeah. Like he is huge. He's a big guy. Yeah. Davian's also tall and big, but not quite as developed. He's younger, obviously, than Chibi. So he's having to learn how to play against these first team players without having some of those physical gifts. So I would imagine it makes him better in other technical aspects of the game, that then when he grows into, becomes a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, it even makes you even better when those attributes then come. Yeah.
And Blake as well. Blake is not physically fully developed.
Sure.
So these guys...
That's what I've been saying about myself, and I'm almost 30. So.
But so these guys, they're developing other skills to match up with that level that they're lacking in physicality. But when the physicality arrives, they are more prepared. So that's why now it's turning a little bit in US soccer and soccer in general, looking at those players that are late developers, because they are competing at the highest level without even being fully developed physically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an important.
So we have Chibi, Blake, Davian all on the first team. You're
Yeah.
at training a lot. Are you still helping those guys? Because, you know, as they come off the field, you still talk to them.
Yeah.
Hey, what about this? What about that? Because they still also play a lot of academy games at times too.
Yeah. So these guys, they have an individual developing plan that requires like different workouts in the gym, depending on what they need. And also we use in video to talk to them and help them understand the mistakes that they are still making tactically. So having players that young signing in the first team requires that different treatment. Yeah. And we have that with the individual development plans with Chibi, Davian, and Blake. So they work extra because they are in a different spectrum also.
Yeah. Well, Chibi was here last week. We talked to him. He came back from U20 U.S. Men's National Team camp. It's obviously a huge honor. You got to feel such pride when some of these academy players, they either go to a national team or they sign with the first team. That's got to give you such pride that, all right, what we are doing is working. It is developing these players is working, and it's resulting in a lot of really great things.
Yeah. So that's when he made his debut. I was nervous. I was like, well, Chibi is stepping on the field. I mean, he's gonna. So I was wondering how.
You don't tell him you're nervous though, right? You give him. You're like,
oh
hey,
of course.
He's got this. Yeah,
of course.
Hey, you're nervous.
But inside me, I'm nervous looking because I want him to do well.
Sure.
And I was extremely surprised. How good he looked. How he looked at the level. He didn't look like out of the picture.
Was this the San Jose game? No. Or was it a different
I think
game?
he played before one.
I can't remember.
But even in the San Jose game,
in
the
a
San
huge
Jose
spot.
Yeah. But you still see mistakes that he made tactically. Mm-hmm. So I still see the potential of him cleaning up those mistakes. Mm-hmm. If he's looking good right now, imagine when he cleans up those mistakes that are not huge, but are still fixable.
Yeah.
So that give me like vision on how the program has. We can see that gap between the first team close up when you see Chibi performing like that, and you see my guys. Okay, this guy was in the academy 3 months ago. So it means that these guys that he was at the level in the academy could potentially be there, and these guys see that. Mm-hmm. So they see that they can arrive there. So it makes it's exciting. It's great.
And we see it really more with our team and in the USL level, more than the MLS level, because it just doesn't happen as often where guys get opportunities at the MLS level. But I wanted to ask too about we're talking a lot here, which is great. I have a lot of questions. I feel like we're going to run out of time quick. But today specifically is an important day. This is coming out later this week, but this podcast is. But today is we got 8 academy players signing for college. So then you have the importance of, obviously they want to go play for the first team, but in reality, not everybody can go and play for the first team, but still having these guys set up for success, getting either scholarships or going to play at the next level. Also, just a huge positive for the academy, for this area, having such a good amount of soccer players. Tell us a little bit about some of these guys who are signing today.
Yeah, so we want to prepare. Ultimately, what we want is have a player sign for the first team with, in the future, maybe have like 4 or 5 guys playing constantly as a starter in the first team. That's the objective. But in that journey, there are other players that are not going to make it, but are helping these guys make it. Yeah. So the success of Chibi playing against the Earthquakes is the success of all the players in the academy, because without them, he couldn't make it.
Right.
And knowing that only a few of them will be able to sign. Obviously, we help others like continue having a good career in soccer, but also getting their education. So it's huge for nowadays the players and kids get education and they have the opportunity to do it, getting scholarships from D1 schools, and we're celebrating that today with these 8 guys coming and signing for college.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And we do it every year. A lot of times we would recognize where they're going before they leave at a match, and I'm sure we'll do that again, but excited for them today. We've bounced around having various age teams in the academy the last couple of years. We added U19s this season. What was the reason kind of behind that? Maybe talk to us like why the age levels have varied a little bit.
But they changed it in MLS internally, and how the strongest age groups before were 17s and 15s, and now they are 16s and 19s this year. So before we want to compete in the highest level. We had 17s and 15s, and we didn't feel like we need extra team with the 19s, because we signed by the age of 17 they already signed. But now that they change it internally to be the strongest one, the 19s and 16s, we move according to the league. But I think this gives us the opportunity to have players like Chibi, Blake, and Davian still having competitive games in the academy. Which, if we don't have the 19s, we wouldn't be able to do it.
How much satisfaction do you have when one or many of the teams beat an MLS academy team?
Oh yeah, that's huge. That's huge because
I'm sure it's a big deal around the office. I know that.
We want to compete with them. We compete with them. We want to beat them. We want to show the league and the country that we are as good as them. Obviously, there are some limitations that we have in resources, but we want our players to stay here, to love the club and be dreaming on stepping on with the first team on the field. And for that we need to show that we are as good as them.
What one of the things I think is cool is about the academy system that we have is it's a pro and a college pathway, right? We kind of talked about that a little bit, but not a lot of teams have this ability in their academies where you guys are not only pushing for them to go pro, but for them to go to college. Do you guys, and I'm assuming you have a lot of relationships with a lot of local coaches who are coming to watch some of these academy games that helps them get recruited. Like how do you help some of these guys get recruited and go to college?
Well, we have events like showcases and tournaments that it's a big opportunity for these college coaches to go and see our players. So we are in constant communication with them, letting them know which guys are doing good or good, which players are good for their program, because all the programs are not the same. Maybe they need this position or this graduation year. So constant communication with these college coaches is key, but also educating our parents and players on how is the process, what do they need to do on their side, because college coaches, they like that. They like players that are proactive in their research on college, and so educating them is important. And now I think in the next 2 weeks we're going to schedule like a meeting with parents and players where we explain the process. Probably Todd will be there, Neil will be there, which is huge. We have
Neil will be there. That's cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
He's been involved a lot, so we appreciate that.
Okay, last couple things before we let you go. One, last 2 academy directors, Dennis Sanchez, coached for Vegas last year, Mark Briggs, last 2 academy directors. I guess my question for you is, ultimately, this is a pretty prestigious position. There's a lot of recruiting that comes from this. Is that something you potentially would like to do in the future, is maybe take a head coaching job in the USL?
I'm not thinking about it constantly. I love the club. I want to work for the club which best I can serve the club, Czech Republic. But I don't close the doors or anything. I love developing players. I love seeing them achieve their dreams and get in the first team. But I think I can help on that, being academy director, being a head coach, being a academy coach, any of those positions. So I will serve on.
I was going to ask you, because I feel like coming from the club and where you came from, where development is like you have to develop players because you can only have players from your region.
Yeah.
It has to just be a little more in your soul rather than somebody who's not from that upbringing. It has to mean a little bit more to you for the development of players. You have to have even more passion for it just from where you came from.
I believe so. I've never been in another situation. I didn't live in another body, so I don't know how they feel. But right. I definitely love working with players and helping them achieve their dreams of becoming a professional football player. All
right, last thing before we let you go.
Yeah.
The beard. So 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago?
I think so, yeah.
2 years ago, I'm going to tell the story, and you can tell me if you remember it differently. 2 years ago, Todd came to me. He's like, hey, we're doing playoff beards. And I cannot grow facial hair well, but I was like, I'm in. Like, I'll be a part of the team. Again, he told me, like, I thought everybody was doing it. I thought players were doing it. I thought the whole staff was doing it. Like, that was what the impression he gave me. Maybe I misunderstood. I gave him a very hard time for this. The other person who was on board was you. You, me, and Todd. It was like basically the three of us were like the only ones in the office. Mine looked horrible. I remember doing a TV interview, and I had to, like, it looked so bad I had to call it out.
Because everybody had beard, no? Mark had beard. Like,
Mark had a beard. Yeah.
DQ had beard. Like,
yeah, so it wasn't, but it doesn't matter. For us, though, because you had never grown a beard before.
Yeah.
So you were very self-conscious, as was I.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to look bad, and that was, like, kind of part of the thing. However, I was very upset because you have a beard now. Like, all of a sudden, it grew in. It looked great. I was like, what just happened? How did I get suckered in? And, like, Eder's got a new look. He looks great.
No, I never grew it. And I didn't want to do it. I said, I said, give me another challenge. I grow my hair. I paint my hair or whatever. But no the beard, please. No the beard. But then I let it grow, and then I like it and I keep it.
Yeah. I didn't have the same result, unfortunately. But all right, Eder Quintanilla, our Academy Director. Congrats on the signings that are today. They'll be announced a couple days ago if people listen to this. But thanks for joining us. This was great, man. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Connor. Yeah. Thank you, guys.